Welcome, wrestling fans.
This is Friday Evening's Undercard, my wrestling show today. Eric and I catch up on the last month in wrestling. We talk about the WWE Hall of Fame, the Crockett Cup, the Viceland Series, Darkside of the Ring, and much more.
You had a trip to, what is it, Vince McMahon call it? A medical facility.
Yeah, I had my medical facility. Had a fixed doctor's but I am back. The show doesn't end.
Yeah, show must go on all the time. Show must go on. Oh, and obviously, your trip to the medical facility, you had to miss the Crockett Cup. That was actually a good show. Yeah,
I hated to miss that. I literally probably could not have ridden in a car. So, or, me on painkillers, we don't want a reenactment of Bret Hart at the Hall of Fame. Man, last thing I need to do is try to drop kick Ricky Morton.
Oh, yeah, we haven't even recorded since the Hall of Fame, have we?
No, we haven't.
Man, we got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, we got a lot to cover tonight.
You had that idiot jump in the ring with Bret Hart.
Yeah. How that guy didn't just get totally destroyed more than he did is beyond me. I think we should do a watch along to that, actually.
Honestly, I don't know if the footage is still out there.
Well,
you would have to either go on Twitter or YouTube and hope some of it's still there, because the WWE has edited the footage.
Oh yeah, I have no doubt they edited it, but hey, it's the internet; it's out there.
I actually watched it on the network. I didn't watch it live, but I did watch it on the network that same night. I think I watched the last two. I watched Booker T or Harlem Heat, I guess it was. Mm-hmm. So I watched Harlem Heat and DX live, and then immediately went back and watched the rest of the show. So Honky Tonk and Tori and Bret Hart. And when I watched it, because it was the same night, I mean, it was only like 2 hours later, it was actually still on there. And so they just cut the camera off to the crowd.
And I mean, what a total old school response to that. I mean, even though we're talking about, a publicly traded company, WWE, the boys, they can still go if they need to. And
that was my whole thing, is what was going through that dude's mind? Because, okay, maybe these guys are sports entertainers and they're not legitimate tough guys like a lot of other people used to be. But at the same time, these are some pretty big dudes. And, they're not they're not my first choice of who I'd want to fight if I had to take somebody on, right?
Yeah, and also in a moment like that, when you see a guy just hit the ring and then make contact, there's not time to discuss. It's not going to be, hey, man, what are you really doing? We're going to make sure you're no longer a threat.
Oh, yeah. And I still don't know who the first two people to hit the ring were. I know Travis Brown was one, and he beat the daylights out of that guy.
Well, all people need to do is pull that guy's mugshot up. Some people got some pretty stiff shots on him.
Well, apparently,
I think we could say he got busted open hard way.
Apparently, the mugshot that got circulated around first, and I was guilty of circulating it too, was not actually the mugshot of the guy. He didn't get beat up quite as bad as that first mugshot showed.
Well, that's disappointing.
It kind of is, isn't it? But I couldn't tell if it was Travis Brown. Oh, I know it was Travis, and then I couldn't tell if it was Shane or Miz. Was in the ring second, because they were sitting basically side by side, and I know it was one of them that jumped in there. And then I know New Day got in there kind of from the back, and they got on him, and then Harry Smith, he got in there and was teeing off on the guy too.
Yeah, it's just a total. I don't think we're gonna see WWE do that again with the ring.
No, not like that.
I think they might go back to the stage. I know. I guess the reason they didn't want to do it was, they want to tear the ring down, and set everything up. But I think safety wise, they're going to do, a different format. And I mean, part of me always thinks, do we really? I mean, I know the crowd, we like it, but I think at times the crowd kind of goes into business for themselves. Those things.
Yeah, they do.
And it becomes less about the person being inducted and more about the crowd. And I don't know, it kind of seems to take away from it a little bit, you know. But then again, I don't know if we want just like, you know, they're in like some hotel dining facility, you know, maybe the Charlotte, North Carolina Radisson. I'd recommend that facility if it's still standing.
You know, in New York, there are enough places that they could do it that it would be really cool because there's enough really cool ballrooms and stuff up there.
Yeah.
That if you only wanted to do it for like a couple thousand people, you could do it. But like, I don't know what's there in like Tampa.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so it's going to be interesting what they do moving forward because I mean, I think as longtime fans, we really look forward to it because it is a nice step down memory lane. And I just feel, you know, they're going to have to figure something out because I think also it's gotten kind of unwieldy with the crowd too. So it'll be interesting to see what we're looking at a year from now.
And, you know, honestly, if they're going to say that the whole thing with taking the ring down is the reason for trying to move it like that. So this actually goes back to the Crockett Cup weekend. So I stopped in Greensboro, North Carolina on the way down on Friday, and I went to this small local show, Firestar Pro Wrestling, and I'd contacted the promoter. Like, I mean, you and I were gonna do this, and you know, I was doing some backstage interviews with some guys to try to get some content for the show, and you know, I ended up interviewing I think 6 guys, and the promoter was having some issues with like his audio stuff, so I actually gave him some of our stuff because I mean, you know, I had the whole kit there, but as soon as I handed it to him, I was like, "Hey, do you have like a Post-it note or something that we can put on this? Because in 3 hours, once your show's over, I'm going to forget it's here." And he's like, I don't know, he said something, and then we didn't have it, and sure enough, I finish up, I do some more interviews after the show, and it's lost. Right, I leave it there. So he was actually on the card at the Crockett Cup. He was in the tag team battle royal. Him and another guy that were also on the show. And I ended up messaging him Saturday night. I was like, "Hey man, I forgot that thing. Are you going to be at the building tomorrow?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll be there at like this time." So anyway, where that goes is when I got there, what he was doing was tearing the ring down to take it to a show in Raleigh because he'd rented the ring out. You know, I don't know ever how much money he got to rent the ring to somebody. And so it took 4 of us like an hour to tear down the ring and have it in the truck ready to go.
Yeah.
And when we were leaving the Crockett Cup, I mean, it was probably 30 minutes after the last bell. I mean, they got everybody out of there, and they had probably half that set torn down before, you know, we cleared out of the building.
Mm-hmm.
So it really would not take that long to tear down that set, especially not with the number of people that, you know, WWE is going to have.
Well, and also it's not just the number of people, but how many times has WWE torn down a ring?
Oh.
Like, I mean, like
millions.
They're like the Michael Jordans of tearing down rings.
Yeah, like, I mean, gosh, I mean, yeah, they run 900 shows a year, and I mean, granted, it's not the same crew every time, but so anyway, hey, did you get to watch any of the Crockett Cup on the pay-per-view?
I did get to watch a little bit of it. You know, I didn't watch it live. I was still dealing with everything, but yeah, I've been able to catch pieces of it, and you know, it looked like a solid show. Yeah, from what I saw.
It was. So, you know, the tag team tournament, and I said as soon as I saw I said 2 things as soon as I saw the brackets come out. The first thing, because the first thing they kind of announced was that there was going to be the wild card battle royal. And I said, okay, that's going to be the team that's going to win, right? Like, they're the ones that are going to win the tournament. It kind of tells a good story throughout the thing, or at least they're going to get to the finals. But then I see that you win the battle royal and you go to the first match against the War Kings, and I'm like, well, I don't know about that because I was assuming the War Kings were going to win. But then, hey, the winners of the battle royal go in there and the War Kings do the job, and I'm sitting there just in shock.
Yeah, you know, it's I think we kind of talked about, you know, at least with some of the booking of it, Yeah, it was sort of a little odd, but of course, cards subject to change, and so that's the nature of the beast. But hopefully, this becomes a regular thing. I mean, I think historically, Crockett Cup is just one of those great names.
It is.
And I think, if you're really trying to revitalize the NWA, that's, I think, got to be one of your premier events to do it.
And then obviously you had the Rock and Roll Express match against the Briscoes, where, I mean, 2 minutes into the match, Ricky Morton's busted open.
Now, was this hard way or did he blade?
Oh no, he bladed. It was the most obvious thing in the world.
Nice.
Because, so, let me try to explain this. So, if anybody has seen pictures of the thing, the hard camera was looking back at the ring, and then behind it was the big billboard with the Crockett Cup bracket, and then those two huge pictures of Aldis and Skrull.
Yeah.
So, the seats that we had were fifth row directly to, as you're looking from the hard camera, directly left of the hard camera. So, 10 feet from the ring or something, 10 or 15 feet from the ring. And he gets busted open outside the ring. And I don't think it was a hard way. I think he bladed when he went down. But then he gets back in the ring, and he's like down on his hands and knees, and his hair is like falling over his face. But we can see him just clear as day reach up with his two fingers and just blade it right down his forehead.
Nice.
So, yeah, he just got juice, old school.
Blading is still alive in 2019.
It is still alive. And Aldis, I don't know if his was a hard way or if he got a little juice too, but whichever one he did, it was gushing.
Yeah.
Like, he was really blown up. Like, half of his face. Have you seen the promo images from Gold Dust about the thing he's doing with Cody at whatever the name of the Vegas show is?
Yeah.
Half of it, Aldis looked like those half and half images of Gold Dust. Like, his face from the nose over was red, like an old Muda face mask.
Nice.
And the other side was just completely clean.
Yeah, but I mean, I hope it's something, I hope they do this next year. Yeah, I think it's a good showcase. Yeah, and also if you're going to do anything revitalizing the NWA, you got to do it in North Carolina.
Oh yeah, at least in the South.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could take it down to maybe Georgia, maybe even Virginia, but I think certainly, people think Greensboro, they think Charlotte. That's kind of the historical home.
Absolutely. And hopefully next year they can get more people because, man, I'm going to be honest. I was kind of disappointed with the crowd. I know it's not the NWA's fault necessarily, although it sort of is because they really didn't do a heck of a lot to promote that event.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I drove on Interstate 85 from South Hill, Virginia, all the way to Charlotte. Every mile of that road, or to Concord or wherever down there, I drove every one of them. There was not a single advertisement anywhere on that 180-mile stretch of road, or however long it is, advertising the Crockett Cup, and I just don't understand that.
Mm-hmm. Well, in my sense, too, I mean, we kind of monitor what's going on, on the pulse of the internet and things like that. And I just didn't feel a buzz about the event. It's like, hey, it's coming up, but I didn't I don't know. I think there's a lot you could have done on social media that could have really built, a lot of anticipation for this event.
I mean, the social media thing is one thing. Oh, and so the tournament ended up being for the NWA World Tag Team Championships, which I think anybody with intelligence could see that coming. But here's the thing. They didn't announce that until, I don't know, it was like 10 a.m. the day of the show. which to me is like the stupidest thing you could do.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I mean, I guess I could look it up if I wanted a precise number, but, you know, the NWA maybe has 60,000 unique social media followers, because there's going to be a lot of overlap between Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So, you know, for somebody who only follows them on one platform, maybe 60,000. And how many of those 60,000 were, one, not already attending, which the number not already attending is about 58,000, right? Because there was less than 2,000 people in the building. So, but of those 58,000 that are left, how many of them are within a 2 or a 3 hour drive of Charlotte?
Yeah.
To where they could just throw their, oh my gosh, they're doing a tag team championship. Oh my gosh, I got to throw the kids in the car right now and get to Charlotte, North Carolina right now. Like, how many people are close enough that they could do that? It's not many, and so I don't understand why you would wait that late to announce that.
Yeah, it just, and I mean, also at 10 a.m. on the day of the show, it just does not, it doesn't have any time to build any anticipation. And also, people have stuff going on the weekends. You know, I don't know if people are really paying attention to social media as much on the weekends as they are, say, during the week. And,
no.
You know, you drop that thing like Wednesday, hey, breaking news, or even like the first of the week, hey, breaking news, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe you might have had a couple extra hundred people say, hey, you know what? All right, yeah, I'll throw down some bucks to go check this out.
And also, here's my thing, is this is the NWA, and it is in Charlotte, North Carolina. Why in Earth's creation was Ric Flair not there?
Yeah.
I would have had Flair booked before I announced the show.
Yeah, I mean, whatever money it would take, I think it would be worth it.
And it probably, you could probably get him for a discount, because he doesn't have to travel, he doesn't have to get on an airplane, doesn't have to do any of that. He can get in the car and drive up.
Now, is Flair actually still living in Charlotte, or is he like in Atlanta now?
You know, he might be in Atlanta.
But even then,
either way, Charlotte to Atlanta is only about 4 hours. You're not talking some major journey.
Yeah, I mean, you basically pay for car service for him. Like,
yeah, you pay for a limousine.
And I mean, I think, like, basically, you say Flair is there in Charlotte, North Carolina, the thing's selling out. Or really close.
Yeah, and then you get 15 billboards on every major highway within 100 miles of Charlotte, and what do? You put Ric Flair up there in a suit holding that big gold belt, and you put Nick Aldis in a suit holding that 10 pounds of gold.
Absolutely.
Crockett Cup, April 27th, Cabarrus Arena.
Yeah, the legacy continues.
The legacy continues. The heritage of this championship continues.
And I think, too, you know, I mean, there was also a lot of free media they could have gotten with just, I mean, how many of those Charlotte channels carried pro wrestling for years?
Oh, yeah. And how many of them would have just jumped at the chance to have to get Ric Flair back?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. To me, I just think, like, I mean, the only thing I can say is, hey, it's their first go at it. They'll learn, hopefully. You know, and of course, not knowing what the budget is, but there's a lot of stuff they could have done that I don't think would have broken the bank budget-wise. And also, if it puts butts in seats, that's money, which offsets your advertising costs.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, so they sold, and this was Friday night. They did the what was it? Oh, they did the dinner thing where they had, I think it was David Lagana. I know Aldis was there. I know his valet Camille was there. Skrull was there, and maybe Willie Mack. And they sold tickets to that for $150.
Yeah.
How much could you have charged more if you said Ric Flair was going to be there?
Yeah. Yeah. You put Flair there, you can, yeah. And then what you do is you even sell some even special VIP tickets, some meet and greets for Flair.
Absolutely.
You're making a ton of money with very little overhead right there.
Yeah, I mean, apparently I've read somewhere that Flair charges like $15,000 for an appearance.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you don't have to do a heck of a lot to make that money back.
No. Now, if you did it right, you can make most of that money back on Friday night.
So all you have to get to make your money back, to break even on that, is you have a meet and greet with only Ric Flair, and all for $150, and all you got to get is 100 people.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I mean, we would have bought 2 of them.
Yeah, I probably would have done that for like a separate, segregated meet and greet with Flair.
Yeah, to get my photo with Nate, heck yeah. That's like something you put in your obituary.
So, and actually, as soon as I got there and got down on the floor, like I walked down, and Cornette was not still down there, and the Rock and Roll were not still down there because they had to work. But the Midnight was still down there, all 3 of them. Dennis, Bobby, and Stan. Magnum was down there. Nikita was still down there.
Mm-hmm.
All the remaining Crockett family members were still down there, and they were all just signing and shaking hands and taking photos. And I mean, obviously they were making money doing it, but you know. Oh, Marty Scurll was still down there, just sitting at a table.
Nice.
And had like a big long line of people waiting to shake hands and take photos.
Nice.
Okay, so anyway, before we end up going too long here, and speaking of things that we hope they keep going, Darkside of the Ring, that has premiered on Vice since we were last recording.
Yeah, some good stuff. I mean, a lot of it if you've followed the history of this great sport, a lot of this is probably nothing new. But I think it is kind of interesting. One, I mean, some of the names they have some pretty big names on there. It's not like, some assistant backup camera guy from 1989.
Yeah.
It's some folks that they were there. I mean, I thought the episode with Bruiser Brody with Tony Atlas, times that was downright heartbreaking.
Yeah, that was a tough one. That was actually the first one I watched.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that was the first one they released online. They actually had that one online, I believe, before they had the Randy and Liz episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like, the Randy and Liz episode, there was nothing that I'd never heard before. I mean, it was all pretty, kind of a rehashing of things we've already heard.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, they're making the shows not for, like, the hardcore fans.
Very true.
Because that was the whole thing with Montreal, is, like, anybody that's, like, a big fan, is going to know the story as they told it about Montreal.
Yeah.
Now, Cornette's kind of revelation about it was different, but, that's really the only thing new.
Yeah, and of course, you got Corny's version, you got Russo's version. Who knows? Unless we start hooking people up to lie detectors, I don't think we'll ever know. It's just part of the lore of wrestling.
That being said, I think Cornette has a little bit better track record with telling the truth than Russo does. And, obviously what they could have had that would have really done something to the ratings. Hang on. So obviously what they could have done that would have really been a boost to the ratings for the Montreal show is if they could have had Vince and Shawn and Hunter and Slaughter and Jerry Briscoe, and those guys on there. Now that would have been something really to see.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think partly, if I'm WWE, I kind of hope the real truth actually never comes out. I think it's almost better that you can still have almost a generation after that match. People are still debating whether or not it's a work or it's a shoot.
Yeah, and obviously that's, gosh, of all people to get to say that he thinks it's a work, Scott Hall.
Yeah.
I
mean, when he was talking about when he watched it, I was like, and how many drinks did you have, Scott?
Yeah, and, the thing is, and this is what, because Cornette did, I think, 3 episodes of his podcast about just the Montreal thing, because he did the one where he talked about it, and then he did one with Meltzer, and then I think he did another one. The footage that they showed that Scott was talking over was not the WWF footage.
Right.
It was the footage from the documentary.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, because even Sean has come out and said that it was, like, yeah, Vince came to me and he said, we're going to do some business with Bret and this is what we're going to do. And, everybody's come out and said that it was a double cross, right?
Yeah.
I mean, except for Vince himself. I don't think Vince has ever actually commented on it, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I think it's, hey, you know what? Having the mystery still there is still a good thing. And also, frankly, in pro wrestling, man, it depends on who you talk to.
That is for sure.
I mean, how many things have we watched in pro wrestling that you could have everybody in that ring experiencing the same thing, and they're all going to give you a completely different story. And so, yeah, that's why I think it's
that's probably something that you have a little more experience with than most of us doing historical research, because how just utterly incorrect are eyewitness reports most of the time.
Oh, they're very, frankly, I don't put a lot into them.
Yeah, they're terrible.
Yeah, when you combine a number of different accounts, a number of people are saying the same thing about the same event, you can probably go, okay, that's probably what happened. But every now and then you'll get an account that's a total outlier that you're like, you know what? I got nothing on this one. Where's this one coming from? And it could be equally plausible. But, yeah, I think the difference is in wrestling, even after the fact, guys are still trying to put themselves over one way or the other.
Absolutely.
And so I think you have to factor that into it as well. Is this, are you giving me an accurate recounting of what you remember, or are you just, trying to put yourself over?
Yeah. And so the only other episode that I think we've both seen that's out is the one about the Von Erichs.
Yeah. And you know what? I watched it. I just don't like watching or reading very much about the Von Erichs. It's a great story with the family, but man, that's just, it's hard to see read about a family going through that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, to me, it's just incredibly tragic. WWE did that. I guess it was the rise and fall of World Class a couple years ago, and that goes into a lot of it. I guess it sort of segues into the other episode with Gino Hernandez, but it's just it's a tough situation with that, and it's, I don't know, wrestling, of course, is full of tragedies. That's as much part of the industry as the great matches, but that was still, it's just not like when you're done watching it after an hour, you're just kind of like, man, I'm spent emotionally.
Yeah, that one was rough, and hopefully there can be something of a happy ending for them. It was maybe a day or so after the documentary aired, I saw that I guess it's Kevin's two sons signed a deal with MLW.
Yeah.
And obviously Carrie's daughter has wrestled for Impact in the past, but I don't think she's done anything recently. But yeah, so the two, I guess Fritz's grandsons, it would be, have signed on to MLW. So hopefully that's cool.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll get a nice story out of that family, because if ever there's a family that deserves it, it's the Von Erichs.
Yeah, and if those two brothers were still wrestling, just saying, they should have been on the card at the Crockett.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, New Japan, they cashed it in, man. Like, they sent two guys that were 50.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand. Why are you going to send anybody if you're going to send two guys that are 50? Why are you not going to send Okada?
Yeah. And in NWA's perspective, might as well have two younger guys that have a marketable name to a lot of casual fans.
Yeah, because you could have gotten a lot of people to come if they heard Von Erich was going to be on the card.
Oh yeah,
especially from Texas, because that I got to think that name still means something in Texas.
Oh, absolutely it does. And I think for fans of the NWA era, that 70s, 80s wrestling, that name carries a lot of weight.
Yeah, absolutely. So you get the two kids there, you get Kevin to be the corner man and do some of the appearance, and yeah, I mean, I don't. It sounds like something you'd make a significant effort to do.
Yeah, because I think what you would want to try to do is, certainly you want to blend. You don't want it just to be a nostalgia show. But I think what you want is to have a good mix of, some marketable names, some good up-and-coming talent. And, I think that probably would have, maybe pushed the dial a little bit for some ticket sales.
I think in all seriousness, it would have pushed the dial more than two luchadors who I don't know how many people have ever heard of.
Yeah.
It's not like they got, Pentagon and Phoenix.
Yeah, but, hey, hopefully they will learn, and maybe next year we will, see maybe a better crowd, better showing. Because, I think, too, the first event of any kind is always problematic.
Yeah.
Because you never really know how it's going to go. But I think in some cases, the second time you do it, and even the third time you do it, now it kind of makes more, all right, now they're here to stay. Now we're doing this. And so hopefully, we'll see this become a regular thing.
And just to kind of close it up on Dark Side of the Ring, next week when we record, or it might be week after, we will have probably the most relevant of all the things to us, and possibly the one that for me may actually have the most new information, and that's the one on Moolah.
Yeah.
So that one is supposed to release on the 15th, which I don't even know what day today is. So yeah, that one's supposed to release on the 15th. I think that's probably next Wednesday. And yeah, so that one will probably have some good information. Obviously, that's going to be pretty relevant for what we're talking about here, because at this point in time, she may still be the women's champion in the WWF.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be, it's certainly not one that I think that could be one that does not make WWE look very good. But because I think it's going to be some pretty, could be some pretty salacious stuff coming out of there.
Yeah, I guess it depends how deep they want to go, because I know some of that pretty bad stuff has already come out. Man, I don't know. Obviously, the stuff, if she was legitimately, pimping the girls out to the promoters and stuff, yeah, that's just hideous. But the whole thing with she was keeping parts of the booking fees and she was messing them over, and I'm just like, listen, if you're going to have outrage about that, then you better stop watching wrestling.
That's like every promoter.
Yeah, that's every promoter ever.
Yeah.
Man, I don't remember what podcast I was listening to, but they were talking about Ron Fuller in Knoxville because obviously he had a promotion pop up and try to run Outlaw with him. And they said the reason they ran Outlaw is because they thought he was basically skimming the gate. And somebody's response to that was, listen, I've been in the wrestling business for a long time, and if Ron Fuller wasn't skimming the gate, and he's like, this is not like, I think saying Ron's a bad guy, he's a good guy, and he probably had the most fair payouts of anybody. But if he wasn't skimming from the gate, then he's probably the only promoter in the history of wrestling who wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, you know full well Vince McMahon is not treating the boys fair as far as like what their revenue is.
Oh, no. I mean, I think that's the promoters are going to try to maximize as much money for them as possible. Like, it's not a matter of giving the boys all they deserve, which I think, that's where we can get into a more timely topic today of, sort of at times the exploitive nature of professional wrestling on the talent. But, at the same time, hey, nobody's being forced to enter into a ring. And so you kind of know what you're getting into, especially in that era.
Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, if they're going to try to knock her too bad for holding out on the money stuff, I don't.
Yeah, I think, for casual fans or people that don't really know the industry, they'll go, oh my gosh, that sounds horrible. Anybody that knows the history of professional wrestling will be like, why is this even being mentioned?
or any sport.
Exactly.
Yeah. Why do you think professional boxers get into promoting?
Yeah.
Because the money's not in boxing, the money's in promoting. That's why Mayweather started promoting his own stuff. That's why De La Hoya started promoting his own stuff, so he didn't have to give 50% of the gate to Don King or whoever.
Yeah, it's, I think it'll be interesting to see how they handle that, but, yeah, looking forward to that.